Terminator Resistance is a game produced by Polish developer Teon, and is of course a licensed game based off the famous Terminator films. Terminator Resistance, when it was released, was lambasted by major reviewers, including IGN, and then later praised by independent reviewers about a month or so later, such as Jim Sterling and G-Man Lives, and many, many others. Now, I remember playing the game shortly after it came out, and to be honest, I didn't think that much of it at the time. However, I've decided to re-review it again, and to see whether it really is worthy of praise. To start off with this game, this is a game that tries to employ various gameplay mechanics which you may be familiar with from other games, like the full 3D versions of the Fallout games, most noticeably with elements such as the lockpicking minigame, which is almost identical. It also has a very generic hacking minigame, which is basically just Frogger. The game also features crafting, resource collection, trading, and an inventory. It also has some role-playing elements where your dialogue choices affect the ending. Now, as appealing as all this may sound, it masters absolutely none of these items. None of these gameplay elements are in any way satisfactory. The trading and inventory system is incredibly crude, where, to be honest, even I could have programmed this in myself, and I have very minimal knowledge in terms of using programming language. Crafting, resource collection is just simply too easy, and the dialogue system is a bit pointless because I just was never interested in any of the characters. I just didn't care about them. Really. So, the story. You play as a soldier who's been cut off from his unit, and from what I remember, was destroyed. And he is now slowly forced to find the rest of the resistance. And along the way, you, as a player character, find some survivors, and then you forge bonds with them. You hear about their stories, do some side quests for them, and so on and so forth. And as the story progresses, you'll eventually take on Skynet in fairly respectably large battles. I'm not going to go too much into the story because I don't want to spoil it for those who might actually enjoy the game. However, in my opinion, the story was fundamentally rather uninteresting, and I skipped a lot of the dialogue because there was just nothing there that really made me care about the characters, because they are just simply foisted onto you. I mean, that being said, though, the Doctor did actually have a few interesting lines where she talked about being a doctor in one of Skynet's work camps, which I felt was actually a step in the right direction in terms of script. The thing is, that was about it. I, again, just did not care about the characters. They were just uninteresting planks, basically. And a lot of them were just classic stereotypes. You've got the child who you're supposed to care about, who's supposed to sort of grab you emotionally. You've got the women who you're supposed to get close with. I mean, this might work in a film. Well, maybe. But in a game, you're really pushing it. So yeah, obviously I skipped a lot of the dialogue. Another interesting aspect of this game is that you can actually sleep with two women. I mean, there's a sort of tastefully done love scene between these two. But yeah, the weird thing is you can do it in the same run, the same section. So within the space of about 10 minutes, you can end up fornicating with your boss and this refugee woman that you've rescued. I mean, okay, I guess the hero has his needs, and the women don't seem to mind. I mean, it is the apocalypse after all. So, presentation. Sorry, still got the COVID. This is actually one of its strong points, because you do actually get the sense of being in the future war, as buildings are often semi-destroyed and crumbling. Actually, no, they all are. And the only new things are, of course, the Skynet buildings and the Skynet little outposts. So that's quite an interesting contrast. They also made a rather good choice, well, wise choice of setting a lot of it at night time. That's not to say all of it, because there are quite a few daytime levels. Personally, I don't think that really works in this franchise. I mean, we as we saw in the first Terminator film, you know, it was advantageous for the Resistance to actually move around at night because, you know, the optical sensors of Skynet's machines couldn't really work that well at night, to the point where they had to rely on infrared. Very much an 80s technology there. Well, obviously didn't start there, but yeah, widely used. Now, interestingly, I do actually remember when this game was first released that they gave a lot of flack for the graphics. They said it was outdated, and to be honest, I didn't really find that. I thought, you know, the graphics were actually okay. Okay, they're not really up to sort of modern spec, but when you consider the size of the studio and how they are kind of new players, it's actually fairly respectable. But that being said, there were a few things that really I did find a bit unforgivable. I mean, there were certain textures which just looked horrible. I mean, there's that texture of the white van which just looked so out of place. You know, things that really take you out of it, that kind of break the immersion. So graphically, I thought the game was okay. I mean, for me, graphics isn't the be-all and end-all, as long as it's good enough. I mean, if you've got good enough gameplay and okay graphics, then that for me is fine. In terms of design, though, there are a few things that kind of bug me, particularly strange enough with the Resistance plasma rifle, which has this forward-facing magazine. Even though its external model actually has it located at the rear, and you can find this looking at the Resistance soldiers. To us, I found that just a bit distracting. In terms of music and sound, that's actually okay. I didn't really find any major problems. Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Gameplay. To be honest, it plays. If you remove the extra features, the Fallout style features, then it just plays like a generic shooter. You know, that's all there is to it, really. That being said, the enemies are quite nice and varied, although you don't really get the same impression as you had whilst watching the films. I mean, the player can take a lot of damage and can give quite a bit back, especially when you gain access to plasma weapons. I mean, the T-800s, which was so menacing in the first film and the second, you know, they kind of go down after maybe like 10 shots, or maybe even less with the plasma rifle. And if you take him out plasma rifle, you can just knock him down in two. But that being said, they aren't pushovers either, so that's, you know. Anyway, but that being said, you know, seeing the T-800s up close, it's great actually, because you really get to see just how intimidating they really are. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you want intimidating, then it's better to watch the first film, particularly towards the end. But yeah, it is good to see them on the 3D game screen. But there are some enemies that I just found just really shouldn't have been there. There's some really annoying ones, including these rolling Terminators, which function as mines. I mean, how they work is you get really close, and then your detection meter just fills up. That's the other thing. The detection meter, there are times when it just shouldn't be there, like when you're in the last couple of levels and you're actually actively trying to fight. It's like they had two ideas about this. It's like, oh, should we go with a stealth game or should we go with action? And they kind of went with the action part, but kept some of the stealth elements. So that was a bit mixed. But anyway, these rolling Terminators, again, they function like landmines. You get close enough to them, and then they deploy and they roll towards you and explode, which I just thought was just naff. Yeah. Also, the other thing is, I found that the T-47, these sort of mech, you know, traditional mech, like something out of Mech Warrior, just didn't seem as if they actually... They didn't seem as if they fitted in the actual universe, and at the same time they also kind of reminded me of Terminator Salvation, which I thought Salvation was just not a good film. It just really should not have been part of the Terminator franchise. But then again, compared to what, Terminator Genesis, you can't really do any worse than that. Okay, so level design, at times it's actually pretty good, including the famous, well, not famous, if you've seen lots of views, then I guess it is famous, but the hospital level, which at times is actually pretty scary. Well, not scary, but it does keep you on edge. I mean, because you know you can't really fight the Terminators, and they're just all around in a very enclosed space. So that's quite good. So I think that was a step in the right direction for Teon. So even within the actual levels you're fighting in, there are optional side quests, and there are particular ones which I rather enjoyed, and that's actually destroying the Skynet outposts. I thought that was rather good. I mean, you can just go in guns blazing, or you can hack the turrets, get them to work for you. That's pretty cool. Or you can just go in super stealth, go in there, and blow up the fuel cells or whatever, or the computer, and it'll just, I think it turns the turrets against the T-800s, and it just blows everything else out. Yeah, I enjoyed that. But overall, I'd have to say the inventory system, a lot of the items you're given, they're just not particularly interesting. I mean, you're given lots of options in your arsenal, including stimulants, noise generators, and a whole bunch of other things. I think even laser mines, proximity mines, and to be honest, I just never really found myself needing to use them. I mean, the enemies just weren't that menacing, and not that clever, and I didn't really need all those extra advantages, so I just never bothered to use them. I mean, if I was confronted, well, when I was confronted with a small horde of T-800s, then all I had to do was wait whilst they resumed the patrol, and I just slipped through. Or I could just simply snipe them off with the plasma sniper rifle. When they're that easy to combat, then what is the point? And again, the enemies aren't quite as deadly, as you can take a lot of hits without issue, which is strange, because plasma rifle, you'd think it would just burn straight through the body. I mean, in Terminator, in the first Terminator film, we saw people getting attacked by plasma fire, and they just took them out like that. Crazy. So the idea of being able to withstand like 3 or 4, no, I think you can go like something like 10 consecutive hits and you just won't die. It's a bit ridiculous. Anyway, again, the enemies aren't that deadly. I mean, you can take on an HK tank in this boss level, and to be honest, when you've done that, the HK tank just isn't that intimidating. I mean, if I wanted to sort of redesign this game, I would kind of have the tanks sort of roaming around the map, and this is the one thing I really wanted to avoid. Instead, you kind of find yourself avoiding the HK flyers, but the thing is, the HK flyers, they just don't really notice you anyway, unless you actually shoot at them. Yeah. So, the gameplay is something I found, to be honest, a rather mixed bag. So, in conclusion, Terminator is probably the best of the games from this franchise. But to be honest, the other games that have come before it haven't been that great to begin with. Just shameless cash rip-offs. But what I can say for it is that it looks like the future war, and right now I think that's the best representation you'll get from the films. I found the story to be absolutely boring and uninteresting, and it just didn't engage me. I was kind of grateful when you came back to the Resistance base and you just found them all dead. I mean, God, you just thought, great, I don't have, I don't have to waste any more time, dealing with boring conversations. The gameplay was fine, it was okay, although I think it would benefited from having less gameplay elements such as the crafting system. I also didn't think that the gameplay did much justice to the films and trying to, carry off that same atmosphere that we had whilst watching, the original Terminator films. I don't mean the ones produced, circa, around the millennium. Especially not Terminator Dark Fate. God almighty, that was terrible. So, you're probably already thinking, wow, that sounds like a bad game, or, you're probably thinking, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, to be honest, I don't think this is actually a bad game, because to me, it's very clear that the studio, the developer, really cared about the material, and they were trying really hard. And it really does show in the presentation. And I also have to bear in mind that this is a small studio with what I can assume would be a very limited budget. But that being said, I have to say it's not a great game. I don't think that it deserves the praise it's getting, as we've seen with YouTube reviews. And even on the Steam store page, where it has received a very positive rating and over 2,000 reviews, again, mostly positive. I think Tale must have done very well out of this, and if they decide to make a sequel, then I'd be willing to bet that it would be rather good because of the additional budget that they have accrued through the sale. In short, I think that this is mediocre, but with a decent presentation. Now, with all this criticism, I think it would only be fair to offer where I think things should be changed or improved upon if I were to design this game. So I'm just going to list off a few bullet points. So, number 1, ditch the civilian characters. Sorry, they just do nothing to enhance the story. 2, early gameplay should focus more on evasion rather than fighting. I mean, there is a bit of evasion, but at the same time you're fighting on these spider bots and other low-level enemies, so you're not really hiding from anything. 3, Resistance plasma weapons should have a very slow rate of fire. I mean, as we saw in the first film, with Kyle Reese, he struggled to get off 1 or 2 shots, and I think the player should have this problem as well. You should genuinely struggle against the machines. It should be more where you have to sort of really consider your battles. Okay, number 4. The story shouldn't make the player critical to the overall universe. Obviously, I don't want to go into too much details in case you haven't played the game and it just spoils it for you. But I think if you've played enough shooters, then you know that you are basically the guy who runs who makes things progress along the story. So it does revolve around you. So as I was saying, it shouldn't make the player critical to the overall universe, but rather make you a very small part in the universe. Because at the end of the day, what we want to see is the future war, not time travel, not trying to save the human race. Okay, number 5. Don't give the plasma rifle to the player, but have them scavenge for the parts. Make the player actually earn it. Number 6. Get rid of certain enemy types, particularly the rolling mines and the T-47, which is the again the mech warrior looking Terminator. Number 7. Consider procedural gameplay, at least after the main storyline. I mean, imagine if you could have like a main base, like the Resistance base, and you'd be able to improve it through going out and doing missions, and then in the process deal out damage to a Skynet base somewhere else. I mean, I mean, imagine the kind of missions you could actually have with that, like being able to send to destroy an HK tank with an AI or a co-op buddy, and then laying down the demo charge at the right time, or you end up being creamed. Just, that sort of tension. And it shouldn't be predictable either. I mean, and even after you've taken out a tank, then maybe next time you'll find that there'll be, the HK tank will be escorted by T-800s moving up ahead, searching for cover. Or maybe there'll be more searchlights, or there'll be a faster rotation speed of the turret. All sorts of things. Or perhaps having to scavenge parts so that you can make more plasma guns for the base and try and keep the people in your base, alive. A bit like State of Decay, they have a very similar system. I think there are even some Flash games out there that I think Flash is becoming obsolete. That actually have that mechanic. You should have like missions where you rescue civilians. Some might be actively hostile and just want your stuff, looters. That could add an extra dimension. Some would actually be genuine and wanting refuge, or perhaps there's an infiltrator amongst them. And if that guy comes inside and kills like half or even all of your base, then you have to start again. There's a lot you could do with this. And to us, I don't feel that these would be major challenges, because again, as I've said, other games have done this. I mean, again, State of Decay 2, well, 2 and 1, and even some Flash games I've played online, mostly revolving around zombies, but they do it. So yeah, that was my review for Terminator Resistance. As you can tell, it doesn't fall on one particular side. I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm not saying it's good either. I think that's about as honest as it's going to get, because a lot of reviewers are sort of going to mount the train of it's a wonderful game, or it really does the film justice. Well, all I'm saying is don't listen to it so much, because you might be a bit disappointed. But at the same time, you'll be surprised with some aspects, because again, the presentation's rather good. It looks the part, it just doesn't play the part. So that's all for now. If you enjoy my videos, remember to like, comment, subscribe, or share, or just keep on watching, because I would really like to hear your thoughts.